Okay, well, welcome everyone. We're going to make a start. And thank you so much for joining this session. And hopefully you'll find this content very helpful. But I just want to say from the very beginning, and hopefully I'm pronouncing it right, Salumu Akilib. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. Apologies if I have absolutely misspoken on that wording. So welcome to this session. This is Supercharge Slack with Flow Actions in Salesforce. We've only got 30 minutes for this session, so we might not be able to display everything that's going on with Flow underneath the hood. However, if you do want to see it and we don't get to it, please feel free to come to find me, and I will be more than happy to show off what we've got working behind the scenes. Hopefully we'll get to a good chunk of that, but we'll see what happens. So, just to kind of introduce myself. Don't need to read through all of that. There's a lot of stuff on there. But really kind of the main things you really should know about myself is probably this last little bit here, that I'm a self-diagnosed flow fanatic. I would happily call myself that. And I spend most of my time in my current job as a Salesforce consultant working with process automation, particularly in Flow. And I work as a consultant at Cloud Galacticos, and I've been in the ecosystem since 2016 and do a variety of other things. One thing I'm going to give a very quick, subtle, selfish plug about this, because I am passionate about process automation, is as of just on Thursday, tickets have launched for a conference that I'm launching with another Trailblazer in the community on process automation called Automation Dreaming. So if this is something that you are interested in, you can scan the QR code and get more information about the event. Alternatively, just go to automationdreaming.com and that will pull up. This slide will be getting shown again at the end, but I'll give you just 1 second for those who've got phones out, because I can see some phones, to take that image. Great. Okay, so we're going to move into the main content of the session. So again, this is really looking at Slack actions in Flow. And just to give you a bit of a peek, you're getting to see in this session 6 Slack actions and ScreenFlow in Slack, all in probably a span of maybe about 5 minutes or so, fairly quick. And I'd say hopefully we'll get to show some of the stuff underneath the hood as well. So what we're going to cover in this session in a little bit is Salesforce and Slack, the relationship between Slack and Salesforce, but on a very quick and easy level. There is more details about that online, which you can easily search for. How do you connect? We're not going to demo that in this session, but I'm just going to tell you basically what you need to look for in Slack to actually set up the connection. But it's basically it's a guided process. So basically you follow steps, and Salesforce directs you through how you set that up. Talk about very briefly about the flow actions currently available. I do cover the majority of them in this session. There's only really 2 that I don't cover in here at the moment. Future of flow actions in Slack, and that's just a very, very brief statement from my understanding and what I have seen recently. Overview of the demo. So a brief introduction to the Lightning app I've been building for the demo. A breakdown of what's included. The demo of the solution, which you can get to see the flow actions working in Salesforce and Slack. Again, a little peek under the hood. Hopefully we'll get to as much of that as we can. Questions and answers, and then the closing. So a fairly, probably quick whistle-stop tour for this session. Now, let's talk about flow in Slack. So here's a not so forward-looking statement. You're not going to see me building any of these flows, because unfortunately we've got 30 minutes, and to build all of the flows you're going to see in this session will take more than 30 minutes. So you're not going to see any building in this session. So about the relationship between Slack and Salesforce, very quickly for those who might not know about it. So Slack and Salesforce together. Salesforce bought Slack back in 2020 with the and to this date, it is currently still listed as the biggest acquisition that Salesforce have ever made out of. So that might be something that you find particularly interesting. The acquisition was completed in 2021, right about a month before Dreamforce last year, if anybody remembers that. And here's the bit you need to know about how to set it up. If you go into your setup in Salesforce and just type in the word Slack, you will see initial Slack setup come up. All you need to do to set up Salesforce for Slack is to click on that link and follow the guided steps. But we're not going to demo that today. Again, we only have so much time. And flow actions in Slack, they are currently in beta still, where they first came out in the summer release of this year, and they were ratified in Winter 23. One of the big things in the Winter 23 release, which is just finished up coming out last week, if anyone's on the back end of that, is you can use input variables now in Slack Actions, which wasn't available in the summer release, but it is now, which is very, very helpful when you're using flows for that. So things to be aware of with Slack Actions. So when creating actions, it's good to store these values somewhere in Salesforce, because these are what Slack Actions will most of the time ask you for one or both of these references. So your Slack channel ID, it's going to ask for that. Pretty much every single action is going to ask for a channel ID. So it's possibly a good idea to store that somewhere within Salesforce so you can easily access it. And the message timestamp. If you're editing messages via Flow, or if you're pinning and unpinning messages, it will ask you for the timestamp. So those are your two big kind of output variables that you want to probably store somewhere for easy reference at a later point if you're using those actions. Actions in a record triggered flow, they need to be on a scheduled path. And just as a bit of awareness, you will see this in the demo. There is a slight gap in actions running in terms of that. So even if you set it to run 0 minutes after the update, there will be a slight delay in the actions appearing, working in Slack side. But that's not a huge one. It's only, I've noticed the longest I've seen it for is about 30 seconds. But when you're doing the demo, 30 seconds can seem like an eternity. So there's ways a little bit around to cheat that. And I say this in a positive spin. If anybody was at Dreamforce, I spoke on using Slack Actions in Orchestrator. And a lot of the time, that can actually make the actions run instantaneously. So if you're looking at using Slack Actions in auto-launch flows, that can make things run instantaneously. But you'll need to obviously fire that action somewhere. So you'll see some actions in this session will run straight away, and the one with the record trigger flow will have a slight delay. At the moment, we can't do the following, but these might change in the future. I don't know. I don't have the inside track on this, but at the moment, we can't store conversation IDs or direct message IDs. It is only messages to channels that we can send at the moment. And that might come at a future date. I don't know. I'd personally like to see that, but we'll see what happens. And at the moment, we can't run screen flows via Workflow Builder in Slack. However, if anybody was watching the Flow Ask Me Anything from last week that came out, this was announced. That ability to trigger a Slack screen flow via Workflow Builder is in the pipeline, but no dates have been announced for that as of yet. So that's something I'm actually quite looking forward to. So I can just basically click on create a workflow inside of Slack and then fire up a screen flow. That's something I personally am looking forward to seeing, but we don't have that just yet. Okay. Into the solution before we go into the demo. So this is a Lightning app that I've been building just to be able to use with demos, which is I've referred to it as Slack Manager. So that's what you're going to see on the screen. This is a first draft of the application. So there's certain things that you might see on the screen which isn't available just yet because I haven't fully built that out. But at the moment, it uses 3 custom objects. It uses a custom object for Slack channel. So when a Slack channel is created, a record is created inside of Salesforce for the Slack channel, which has the ID and some other details for easy access. Slack channel member, same kind of thing. You add a channel member, and it will create a custom record linking that user to the channel member, so for easy reference. And there's also Slack message. Slack message is the one that will probably change. I'm looking at probably surfacing that out as possibly a Lightning Web Component at some point. But because at the moment I don't know Lightning Web Components, I've went for the custom object route. So that might change in a future update. And it basically just uses the core Salesforce for Slack functionality. So if I was ever to make this available as an unmanaged package or a managed package, you would have to install the Slack app that Salesforce provides to have this work. And it uses a combination of flows to manage Slack channels and messages. And again, first draft of this. So some of the bits in it haven't been fully built yet. So you're going to see a bit around kind of the early stages of this application for this solution. And now we're going to go into the demo. And just a quick note as well before I do, because I forgot to mention it earlier on, I've got a couple of Admin Skill Kits trading cards, which I'm going to give away at the end for anybody who wants one and asks a question, but I've only got 2. So it'll be first come, first served, and based on a question. Okay, so here's the demo. Okay. So for this one, we're going to use a case record. So what's going to happen here is when I create a case, it's going to create a Slack channel inside of Salesforce, and then it's going to ask us to add a channel member, and I'm going to go through the actions that we're going to have here. So let me just get this screen set up. So we're going to put this onto the left here, and we're going to put this onto the right, and get into my right Slack channel, and hopefully that looks okay. It looks fine from there. So we're going to create a case here. And normally I'm going to, just for the sake of speed, I'm not going to fill in every single field. Normally I'll obviously try and fill in as much as we can. But we're going to have here a test contact, case origin for web, a test account, and we're going to put in a subject and a description. And the reason I'm putting this in is in this demo, the Slack channel uses the subject name to create the channel name, and the description gets populated on the record that gets created inside of Salesforce. That's what we also can't bring through at the moment. We can't bring through channel descriptions into Slack from Salesforce just yet. I don't know whether that will come, but at the moment we can't. So the description is just living inside of Salesforce. But in the real world, you could just, on this, if you're using a similar solution to this, you could just copy and paste the description into Slack, and that would work absolutely fine. So we're going to say, if I can spell, for this demo, we're going to have North Africa Dreaming. And for a description, we're just going to say this is a test channel. I'm now going to create this. And once it saves, you'll notice, oh, hang on. I know what I've done wrong there. Quotation mark. This will work now. There we go. So that's one of the things as well with the Slack channel. So it creates the channel underneath the hood. It uses a formula to create the channel name. So if you're creating a Slack channel like that, bear in mind any special characters, because that was the reason why that failed there. Which is good that you saw that live in the demo, because I've got a formula which replaces special characters, but I hadn't put that one in. So that's something you might want to consider when you're building, if I was building out the solution. So we can see we've got the case record here. We don't really need the case too much at the moment. So I'm going to go back to my Slack channel. And you should see there, we have North Africa Dreaming created as a Slack channel. And if I scroll down, you can see we've got the channel name, the channel. It's related to the case record, and this is using dynamic forms to link into that. So my view is have option to link to other objects. And we can see we've got a link to the case. And that's basically all we've got in this record at this stage. But we're going to add some channel members. So I'm going to click on here. And again, this is a rough draft. So you'll see here when this loads up, you'll see we've got a list of users. Normally what I'd be doing is I'd be kind of trying to trim that down So it doesn't have users in there like the automated process and those kind of things. But it services a list of users that we have that are active. So here, I'm going to click on Add, because you're going to notice here, if you look down this side here, you won't see the channel. Although that is a bit blurry, but you won't see the channel now what we created. I'll try and watch this side fairly closely in just a second. If I click on here, did you see the little white bit pop up? That is because this action has worked instantaneously, and we can see here that I have been added to the channel as a member using that action. And you can also see in this demo, I've added a notification as well to say you've been added to the Slack channel. So I've got this actually send a notification in Salesforce as well. So that's how we add the channels, and that is actually using 2 actions. And this is sort of my preferred method for it. You don't have to use the same one, but I use the method of using an action called check if user is connected to Slack, and then invite user. Because what you don't really necessarily would want to see is to add somebody to a Slack channel if they don't have a Slack user. So I use the check if they're connected first, and then invite them to the channel. That's how I've been building this out. So we have that fail safe to go, okay, if they aren't connected, don't add them. Because then your flow would fail, realistically, on that instance. And we're going to now do a quick demo of sending a Slack message. And this here is a screen flow, just launched from a quick action. And here, we have in this screen flow, we actually have the option to fire not 1, but 2 Slack actions from the same screen flow. We have the send Slack message action, and we also have the option to pin and unpin a Slack message. But because we want to do some good user experience design, the pin option isn't available until we actually put some text into the message. So let's just say here, as you can see there, the pin Slack message option came up straight away because I've added some text to that text box. So we're just going to say hi North Africa Dreaming as the test, and we're going to pin the message so you can see how this will work. So if I now send the message, you'll see here, it sent the message instantaneously, and it's pinned it as well. Now, I'm going to show you how to unpin, an unpin action, but this is one that will have a slight delay. So if I go back to my related list, which is at the bottom, you can see here as well, I've got some metrics around the Slack members. I can see I've got my Slack member here. And I've used dynamic related lists here to have an active list and an inactive list. But if I go to my messages here, you can see here we've got our Slack message here. So I'm going to open this up in a new tab very quickly and let that load. And this seems to be taking a little bit of time, but we'll give that. Here we go. And what I've got here is I've just used a path to decide whether it's pinned or unpinned. So I'm going to click on unpinned here, and then mark that as the current status. And this will update, and this will take a few seconds, but this will turn and say this is unpinned very shortly. Now to go back to my record, I'm going to launch ScreenFlow from Slack, because what I've done here, as you can see there, it's now unpinned. So there's a little bit of a delay. But what I'm going to do here, if I go to this case here, I'm going to just quickly edit this. And because what I've done here is I've built the ScreenFlow, which basically asks for essentially an approval to say the status has changed. Is this OK, or should it go back to its prior status? So I'm going to change the status here to working and click on save. And that will, in a second or so, will fire a ScreenFlow, because again, there was a bit of a delay in these actions, and a ScreenFlow will pop up beforehand. And I guess while we're waiting for the ScreenFlow to pop up, does anybody have any questions at the moment? No. Okay. Great. Sorry about that. Go. Yeah, so in terms of Salesforce, I don't know enough about it underneath the hood to give a full answer to that. That's something I could probably find out by tapping a couple of people. But basically, in long story short, and I don't know the full technical answer to it, Salesforce, when you connect it to Slack, has a means of underneath the hood checking if a user is connected to Slack. And I'm assuming that's just basically, I'm guessing they store the ID of the Slack user somewhere underneath the hood and you can track that. But I don't know the full technical answer. But Salesforce intelligently can pick up which users are connected to Slack and which ones aren't based on the Salesforce user ID and something else. I guess that's at the moment, it's the best answer I can give for that one. But I'm sure I could probably find that out by asking a couple of people. Yes?
If I create a second case with the same subject, use the channel Slack, yes, or we create a new channel with the same subject?
Yes. So in the setup I've got, I've deliberately set it up so that the API name for the channel is what I'm referring to it as, which is like that bit here. I'm referring to that internally as the API. I've deliberately said that can only be a unique value inside of Salesforce. So in the Salesforce side, when this creates, the flow would fail because this has to be a unique value. In terms of Slack, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure Slack can only have unique channel names, but I would have to triple check that to be sure. I'd like to think that it only allows unique names, but I've set up in Salesforce deliberately to only allow unique names in there because really you shouldn't have more than one active channel for the same thing in terms of good business usage of it. Okay, now that we have the screen flow up, you can see here that the screen flow's popped up, says a change has been made, we need to approve it. And I've got a few minutes left, so we're going to try and go as quickly as we can through this. So I'm going to click on Make Decision. And what I'm going to do, just so you can actually see it working, is I'm going to not approve this. Because what happens if I don't approve it, is if I go back, and if I quickly go back to my case record, and then just click on Edit the case, you will see here the status has changed back to new from working. And just to show off the very last action, which is the archival, I'm going to click on Closed, and I'm going to click on Save. And you'll see there, the Slack bot sent a message saying the channel has been archived. And if I scroll down to the channel members, and refresh the page very quickly, what you'll see is that the channel members have been listed as archived, as inactive, and the channel has been listed as archived inside of Salesforce. So that's an idea, and you can see there, this is archived. If I've got a notification to say that a channel that I'm in has been archived, that's something I need to flesh out language-wise. And the very last bit here, you can see all the active members of the channel, which was only one in this instance, have been marked as inactive. Okay, so let me just go back to the screen. I'm going to go back to my presentation and share the last little bit. So what you saw then in terms of what was demoed, we'll do this very quickly to wrap up. So this is actions that we saw demoed here was create a Slack channel, check if a user is connected, invite a user to the Slack channel, send a Slack message, pin and unpin Slack message, which we did twice, and that is the same action. But we did one for pin. Actually, we didn't do the unpin. So I should have done that, but we don't have time. Archive a Slack channel was that. And we launched ScreenFlow from Slack. So there were other actions in there, including join the Slack channel, which just does that straight away. That's one I don't really tend to use because I'd prefer the check if they're connected first. And then there's one as well for edit a Slack message, which requires the timestamp. So we're going to wrap up because we've only got, I think, 2 minutes left. So just want to say a big thank you to everybody for coming. And I will be around if anybody does have any questions. Unfortunately, due to time, we aren't going to be able to see the flows underneath the hood, unfortunately. But this may be something I can do as a recording for a further as a longer recording to show that underneath the hood. So thank you, and I will be happily answer any questions after we've wrapped up. So thank you. Super. Susan, you had 2 questions. Would you like?